The American Southwest, an area distinct from the rest of the country, known well for its rugged terrain, sparse water sources, and extreme weather. So how did this inhospitable region come around to being one of the most prosperous in the whole country? History has shown us that civilizations flourish when they engage in trade. Now think back hundreds or thousands of years ago. How did early southwestern tribes trade with one another when they were so far apart? How did they meet up? Well, they needed something very important, something that we still use today. They needed established paths that would get them to certain places the easiest way possible. We call this a trail. Today we have all kinds of trails. You may even call them roads, streets, highways, freeways, and interstates. But there's one trail in particular that shaped the Southwest to what it is today.
Hello there! I'm here in Enoch, Utah, and you just saw me walking down Mid-Valley Road, the longest street in all of Enoch. But this street has a story to tell. This same path of ground was used hundreds of years ago by the Spaniards going from Santa Fe clear to Los Angeles. Join us as we travel the old Spanish Trail. In the early 1500s, the Spanish arrived and began to establish colonies in Central America. When these colonies began to spread north, they found themselves separated by mountain ranges that ran north to south. This separation continued to widen the northward advance, with Los Angeles to the west and Santa Fe to the east. We'll begin our journey in Santa Fe. The year was 1776, and a well-organized expedition by a Catholic priest named Father Francisco Dominguez was put together to connect Santa Fe to the Southern California mission of Monterey. Now let's put ourselves in Father Dominguez's shoes for a second. You want to get to Southern California, and you'll be the first to lead the way. What are some things you're going to look for in your trail? Well, you want to get there as soon as possible. And we know the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So can you just head straight over there? Well, let's take a look at what's in between.
That was the Grand Canyon. Do you think you might have some problems if you went that way?
You may think you're taking a shortcut, but when you come to the edge of a cliff, it turns out to be a real disaster. So you have to find a good combination between geography and distance. Now, what's one other very important thing you're going to need along the way? If you guessed water, you're absolutely right.
Okay, now let's head back to Santa Fe to prepare for our expedition. Father Dominguez is recruiting for the journey. He assigns Father Escalante as the journalist and Bernardo Miera as the navigator, perhaps the most important role. Altogether, the group has about a dozen members. Now, expeditions had previously been made into the La Salle Mountains along the southern Colorado-southern Utah border. Just a decade earlier, Juan Maria Antonio Rivera had established positive relations with a tribe called the Utes. Now, one of the major fears that the early explorers had was running into a tribe that didn't really like them. So the expedition decided to follow Rivera's route to the north into friendly territory. Alright, now you ready to go for a ride? It's going to be about the longest and roughest adventure the Southwest has ever known. It's July 29th, 1776, and we're heading out. Wow, look at that. Notice all these buildings and roads that have come up hundreds of years after we passed through. Okay, we've been riding for about a month now, and we're in Ute country. We recruit a few Native American guides to help us along the way. They'll be very important to have. Not only do they know how to live off the land and travel the landscape, but they're also very important because they'll make friends with the new tribes that we'll run into. With our new guides, we'll be making our way north into uncharted territory. On September 11, 1776, we cross into present-day Utah near Dinosaur National Monument. After filling up our water in the Green River, we follow our guides west to Utah Lake. We're greeted by another friendly group of Utes. We really like it here. The land looks so beautiful. It's great for growing crops, and the people are so welcoming. But we need to hurry up and head to Southern California. Early the next morning we head south, right across the same strip of land that Interstate 15 will later run on. In October, we get hit by a terrible winter storm. Our guide leaves us, and the group isn't happy. Some people are asking that we turn back, while others are pressing that the party move forward. Rather than take a vote, we draw lots to determine our destiny. The lot was drawn to head home, but we knew we couldn't make it back the way we came because the mountains would be snowed in. Instead, we'll head south to the Virgin River, then we'll head east back to Santa Fe.
Almost every penny on to you. When I come home, I know I'm gonna be the man who comes back home to you. And if I broke, well I know I'm gonna be the man who's growing older than you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more to be the man who walks 1,000 miles to fall down that chute.
Wow, this is the toughest part of the journey. Looks like the most challenging thing we'll do is cross the Colorado River. The water is rushing, and the canyon walls are high. After over 1,700 miles and 5 months away, we're finally home. But we didn't return to Santa Fe as a failed expedition, but rather as one that brought important knowledge of the land and locals that will be used from this point on. Thanks in part to the Dominguez Escalante expedition, the Spanish capitals of Santa Fe and Los Angeles were finally connected. This overland route became known as the Old Spanish Trail. It was the longest, crookedest, most arduous pack mule route in the history of America. By 1829, Mexico was independent from Spain and the trail was booming with trade. Woolen and handmade goods were brought from Santa Fe and traded for horses in Los Angeles. A darker secret to the trail was the slave trade. Dominant tribes would sell members of the weaker tribes into captivity. There are also occasions where some of the overland travelers would just snatch them up without a trade. In the late 1840s, traffic along the trail slowed down. In 1848, Mexico signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which ceded the land to the United States, and new settlers were moving into the territory. But that wasn't the end of the Old Spanish Trail. In fact, it was just getting started. Mormon pioneers used the trail to reach southern Utah and send more pioneers into Nevada and California. Today, the Old Spanish Trail is in use like never before. Anyone who has taken I-15 north to Salt Lake or south to Las Vegas and even on to Southern California has used the Old Spanish Trail. The Old Spanish Trail connected the Southwest and sparked the prosperity and economic growth that we continue to see to this day.